Well, hello everyone, and sorry for the slight delay. Had a couple of technical issues, but welcome to the preview stream for round 5 of the 2020 Formula 1 World Championship and episode 5 of the Midweek Roundup, where we will be rounding out the news, analysing last weekend's race and previewing this weekend's race, which takes place at the same track. So, without further ado, let's go into the news. Big news starting off today, but not very surprising news, but this came out today. Valtteri Bottas has signed a new deal with Mercedes for 2021. The interesting thing though is it's only a 1-year deal, and that seems to be a theme with him, which doesn't really suggest Mercedes are planning on keeping him for the long run. But another 1-year deal, Valtteri will get another year, which is the right decision, because they might as well, if they're going to change drivers, they might as well save it for the big regulation change in 2022 and keep the same drivers in the same, if they're keeping the same cars. So Valtteri Bottas will be remaining at Mercedes next year. I will be doing more once the driver market actually develops a bit more. I will be publishing more content about the 2021 driver market. And there's also been rumours that Sebastian Vettel has actually signed a deal with Racing Point. And there are rumours going around that the reason why, that they were planning on announcing it last week, but the reason why was that it would have been, they are saying that it would have been inappropriate in the circumstances, considering what happened with Sergio Perez last week. I mean, it would have been quite inappropriate for Sergio Perez to announce for it to be announced that Sergio Perez is going to be unable to take part in a race, and then the world is told that he's going to lose his drive next year. But where the big question is, surely Perez won't drop out of Formula 1. Surely. That's been the case. And Nico Hülkenberg is not confirmed for this weekend yet, because they are pending. They want to test Sergio Perez, because if he tests negative, he will be able to take part in this weekend's 70th anniversary Grand Prix at Silverstone, which would be really, and this would be good in one circumstance and a shame in another circumstance. It would be good for Sergio Perez that he gets back in the car, which a seat that's rightly his. But it would be a shame for Nico Hülkenberg, because then he would have been called up not even to be able to race in the race he was called up for, and then not to get another chance, which would be quite unfortunate. But there are rumours also swirling around that he is looking around for a full-time return in 2021. Of course, those seats would likely mean Alfa Romeo and Haas, and that's probably where Sergio Perez may be looking if he ends up being dropped by Racing Point. And elsewhere in the motorsport world, the British Touring Car Championship got underway. Now, for people that don't know, I have done a few posts on the British Touring Car Championship on Absolute Motorsport before, and I will be doing a few more features on it, a few more reports on it on RaceWeek, maybe a few features on the upcoming site that RaceWeek has. But we saw some interesting racing. We had it was a bit of a dilapidated field in the British Touring Car Championship, because quite a few drivers had to drop out due to financial issues relating to the COVID-19 pandemic. The most high-profile examples were Andrew Jordan, who was scheduled to drive for West Surrey Racing, and also the Powermax team, the Powermax Racing team, which household name Jason Plato and Matt Jackson were due to drive for this year, pulled out of the championship for this year, although it's said they may have a few guest entries, but they are postponing basically everything from 2020 until 2021. Their branding and everything, it seems. But the season got underway, and we saw 3 different race winners in the first 3 races. We saw Dan Camish win the first race of the season for Halford's Yuasa Racing. Colin Turkington, though, took the lead at the beginning of the second race and never looked back and took the victory in race 2. Then in the reverse grid, it was a feisty drive from Ash Sutton, and he took the win, his first win for Laser Tools Racing after his previous team BMR pulled out of the championship at the end of last year. And he jumped ship to Laser Tools Racing and he seems to have grasped that new car well, and he won. But Colin Turkington does lead the standings. He took a second, a first, and a 10th. He's on 46 points, ahead of Dan Camish on 40 points. Actually, the driver that he just beat to the championship last year. Ash Sutton's in third, ahead of Rory Butcher, Tom Ingram, Tom Oliphant, Chris Smiley, Matt Neal, Adam Morgan, and Josh Cook. And of course, with the touring car, we had quite a few support series take place last weekend, and the most notable one that I am going to be talking about, because that dovetails into the main series that I cover on this platform, is the British Formula 4 Championship, which got underway at Donington last weekend in support of the Touring Car Championship. And like the Touring Car Championship, we saw 3 different race winners in the form of Alex Connor taking a victory in the first race, Zach O'Sullivan winning the second race, and James Headley winning the third race. At the moment, it is Zach O'Sullivan that does lead the standings, having finished in the top 4 in all 3 races. Consistency is what is putting him to the top of the standings, ahead of Luke Browning, who's many people's tips for the championship this year. He's currently in second. He had 2 second places, but a 12th place in the second race is probably what has put him down into second place. James Headley is currently in third, ahead of Casper Stevenson in fourth, and Alex Connor is down in fifth. He didn't really have a good second and third race. He was involved in various incidents in both the second and the third race. Actually, both incidents on the first lap. The second race causing him to retire. It was a very chaotic second race. There were plenty of incidents on the first lap. Roberto Farah is in sixth, ahead of Rafael Villagomez. Christian Mansell, he has no relation to Nigel Mansell as far as I know, by the way. Frederick Lubin and Matthias Zagazeta is in 10th of the 15-car field. And of course, both the British Touring Car Championship and the British Formula 4 Championship returns to action this weekend at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, I believe. It's a bit weird having the Grand Prix circuit this early in the season. Usually it's the final round, but it seems that they will be using that both series, all British Touring Cars and their support series, will be using the Grand Prix layout this weekend. And, of course, and a race that's literally just happened, we have the Formula E series. We have just seen, literally just moments ago, the second of the Formula E showdown in Berlin. The 6-race showdown in Berlin took place. And it seems that Antonio Felix da Costa, this is his to lose now. Having won both the races, he won convincingly in both yesterday and today, and he now holds a considerable lead in the drivers' standings. he holds a 68-point lead. He has double the points of his nearest rival in the form of Lucas de Grassi. Stoffel Van Dorn is in third after 2 very good races. Then you have Mitch Evans, Sam Bird, who's really dropped off quite a lot. Sebastian Buemi, Alexander Sims, Andre Lotterer, Maximilian Günther, and Oliver Rowland rounds out the top 10. So that is the latest news from this race. And now let's go into some analysis of a couple of things that happened at the British Grand Prix. There are three things that happened that are worth analysing in this episode. Here, the first incident, you have Alex Albon and Kevin Magnussen. Now, I did think that Alex Albon's penalty was a bit harsh, because I really did think that he was entitled to go for that move, and he didn't really have much space. And here is why I'm going to demonstrate this in this analysis through these stills. So as you can see, Alex is behind Kevin Magnussen at this point, going into Vale. But then, going into Club, Kevin clouts the curb and runs wide. His exit is compromised. And this has opened the door for Alex Albon. As you can see, he gets alongside here. He has a much more momentum, and he is able to get alongside going into Club corner. Now, at this point, Kevin Magnussen should really see Alex on the inside. But he does kind of chop him off a little bit. And then, of course, the end result of that is that Kevin Magnussen goes into the barrier. Now looking at it from Kevin's point of view, as you can see, he had clouted the curb and he is sent wide. Now, at this point, he should be really seeing... I mean, it could be said that maybe Alex was in his blind spot, but it should be fairly simple to sense that Alex was on the inside. But, of course, he does not want to leave the door open for Alex. And then he does... He doesn't quite get to the apex, but I feel like he could really have left a little bit more space. Not saying that any penalty for Kevin was necessary, as Alex didn't have any car damage, really. Although he did have to pit. He did have to pit in the end. But Kevin kind of already was punished in the form of a DNF. And sometimes when that happens, it gets to a point where there's no need to punish, that he already... But I thought the penalty for Alex was a bit harsh. Now analysing the tyre failures. Now having a look at it, it does seem like a lot of people were blaming, maybe speculating that there may have been debris. But this is similar to 2017. I mean, the debris may have played a part in maybe potentially increasing, because of course an already very worn tyre being cut is obviously going to make them more susceptible to this. But as you can see here, he goes into turn 1, and what it does seem like, I don't really see any cuts here, but what it does seem like is that the tyres, and this is kind of what happened in 2017, the tyres simply collapsed going into the corner once they no longer could take the loads. And now looking at this final instance, you have Pierre Gasly on Sebastian Vettel going into Stowe corner. He gets around the outside, and going to analyse this move, because this could really be interesting to note this weekend, because some people may actually have looked at that and think, I can go around the outside of Stowe, because I mean it's obvious. It's been obvious that that's possible, but it seems like, but they will be thinking that's more possible after this. As you can see, Pierre Gasly going round the outside of Stowe corner, and then this is the reason why he didn't get a penalty for passing him off the track, because as you can see, Vettel edits him wide, and he actually loses ground as a result. But he still has the inside line, which is what he would have had Vettel not edged him wide, and then outbroke him going into Vale. So that is why he didn't get a penalty. But now it's time to look at the weekend in hand. And once again, we've got to preview the Silverstone circuit. Of course, I'll be getting onto moments of the week at the end. That is an end of program thing. But now let's look at the track guide of Silverstone Circuit. As you can see, we start the lap and then heading into the flat out Abbey. I mean, temperatures are expected to be hotter this weekend, and obviously we have the softer compounds. I'll be discussing if that's going to be increasing the concerns with... Right now I'm going to discuss whether it's going to increase the concerns with regards to the tyre failures. And I actually think it might decrease, because now teams are going to be actually forced to do a second pit stop. Teams may not be inclined to push the tyres harder than they can actually manage, which is evidently kind of what happened last week, and also what happened in 2017. But I think we're going to, obviously, people will be having no second thoughts about doing a two-stop, and providing they execute it well, because part of the reason that it happened was the safety car meant that the team stretched their stints a bit more. But I think there'll be less concerns, and I think that could lead to more strategy variation. Of course, other changes to the track that we have had for this weekend is the curb, which was reduced, which some people are maybe saying contributed to the tyre failures, has been re-extended to the 2019 levels again. And also there's a tyre wall that apparently there's a tyre wall that has been added where Danny Kvyat crashed. I mean, the fact he hit a concrete wall, it's amazing that he didn't have any injuries at all. And the first thing he actually thought of was apologising to the team. But now let's have a look at a video lap of the track once again. So you start on the main straight, then going into Abbey, which is fully flat in a Formula 1 car, obviously as proven last week. Then you break into Village. Obviously this is where a lot of the things happen. Then into the loop. We did see a few drivers getting exits off Village and overtake into the loop in some of the feeder series. Then you go on to Aintree, then the DRS zone. Down the Wellington Straight, it does seem that to one of the first overtaking zones, into Brooklands, and then into the long right-hander at Luffield, which is where we saw a few drivers get round the outside. Now onto the old pit straight, up towards Copse, which does seem to be easy flat in quali trim. Into Copse corner. Be careful not to track extend. Up towards the Maggots and Beckett's, as I said, a tyre wall has been added where Kvyat crashed. And this is the corner where the curb has been extended. I mean, it's not in this, because obviously the game's been updated, but now not been updated to that. So down the hanger straight up to the best overtaking zone, in towards Stowe corner. This is where track limits was policed the most last weekend. Then braking into Vale, then into Club, and into the final corner, and that is a lap of Silverstone. Now in reverse constructors order, I will be talking about each team and their prospects for this weekend. In reverse constructors order. Appeared to show better race pace last weekend. I think their rate, as I said last week, it's only a matter of time before they scored points, because George Russell was getting stuck in with the Alfa Romeos and possibly the Hasses as well. They tried to do another strategical masterclass last week. It didn't work. Rohan Grosjean may be under a bit of warning after some debatable defensive moves, but I don't think Haas are going to be that confident with the underpowered Ferrari engine. Likewise can be said for Alfa Romeo, who seem to really struggle for race pace. And of course they're doing an investigation into what happened to Kimi Raikkonen's front wing. But I think the Ferrari powered teams will be not that confident going into this weekend. AlphaTauri, they are proving to continue to be a solid midfield team. And Pierre Gasly showed that, actually managing to overtake a Ferrari on merit. Danny Kvyat would have been ruining what happened, because obviously it was a tyre failure, would have been ruining it, because he could have easily scored points. But Alfa Romeo are kind of in no man's land right now. They are way ahead of the likes of Alfa Romeo, but way behind the likes of Renault, who are ahead of them in the constructors. But Pierre Gasly seems to be on good form right now. Next up we have Renault. Had a good race last weekend and will be looking to continue the momentum. The Renault seem to be quite well hooked around this track, so more good points could be on the way for them. They are a team that can be said to have underperformed so far, having a car that's really fast, that's obviously got pace, but where did the pace go? I think there'll be a lot of back to the drawing board at Racing Point, but they'll obviously be hoping to get back to the pace that they were before at this weekend's race. Of course, things are looking very bleak for Ferrari, continuing to after being overtaken by an AlphaTauri, as I mentioned earlier. Being overtaken by an AlphaTauri on merit. Although there is rumours saying that they had a breakthrough with the clerk, that of course maybe they're going to put onto Vettel's car this weekend. Maybe they'll learn a bit more from last weekend, and I have a feeling they could be a bit faster than they were last week this weekend. They will be frustrated that Carlos Sainz had his tyre failure, because that would have been a really good haul of points. They were stated that they were behind Renault on pace, but it'll be interesting to see if they've actually had a look at why that is, and to see if they can improve, because they were strong here last week. Next up we have Red Bull, who look to be more on the pace than they were in Hungary. Will they have... And they actually didn't seem to be that far off Mercedes in race pace. But with some improvements, could they potentially be closer to Mercedes than they have been? Of course, not to say that Mercedes aren't favourites. It's pretty obvious that they go into this weekend as favourites once again. And if Lewis Hamilton wins, he will edge ever closer to the 91 race wins record. This is the year he could break all the record books. But, of course, Mercedes will be analysing why the tyre failures happened, which could maybe make them take a few more precautions this weekend. So, looking at the drivers' standings, Lewis Hamilton has a 30-point lead after Valtteri Bottas' tyre failure. Max Verstappen is currently in third ahead of Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Alex Albon, Sergio Perez, Lance Stroll, Daniel Ricciardo and Carlos Sainz. Then you have Ocon, Gasly, Vettel, Giovinazzi, Kvyat, Magnussen, Latifi, Raikkonen, with Latifi, Raikkonen, Russell, Grosjean yet to score. Obviously, Hulkenberg's at the bottom, having not even done a race, being able to do a race. But Bottas is just 6 points ahead of Verstappen, so more woes could put Bottas at threat to Verstappen, especially if Red Bull end up improving. Of course, Formula 2 rejoins the support bill. And now looking at the drivers' standings for the Formula 2 Championship, Robert Schwartzman had his gap cut down to 8 points and could have easily lost the lead after a poor showing at Silverstone. I mean, a lot of it has been said to do because of a few team mistakes, but still he also didn't get a qualifying lap, the qualifying lap that he had hooked up. So there will definitely be a back to the drawing board for him. Callum Eilert, as I said, almost took the lead, but he threw that away by spinning in the sprint race. Then you have Christian Lundgaard, who seems to be on good form right now, and he can't be counted out of this title fight. Nikita Mazepin, he seems to have gelled a lot better with high-tech than he did with ART last year. So he's currently in fourth. Then you have Dan Ticktum, Guan Yu Zhou, who's had a disappointing start to the year, but many people are expecting to get back into this title fight. They have Louis Delatres, Felipe Drugovich, Mick Schumacher, who needs to get on top of that tyre wear, and Yuki Tsunoda. The likes of Armstrong and Giotto and Aitken, where it had more expected of them this year, and I wonder if more will come from them going forward. And of course we have the Formula 3 series also supporting after an action-packed weekend that we saw at Silverstone last week for the second. So I wonder if we're going to see another action-packed weekend for the second race at Silverstone. Oscar Piastri, his gap has been cut down to 17 points ahead of Logan Sargent in second. David Beckman, after inheriting the win after Alexander Smolier's penalty, is in third. Then you have Frederick Vesti, Liam Lawson, Teo Porcher, who had a disappointing weekend, Richard Verschoor, Alex Peroni, Clement Novalak, and Larim Zendelli rounding out the top 10. Oscar Piastri is looking like he is in command of this title, but we are actually about to be halfway through this season. And we are actually about to be halfway through this season, so if Piastri gets away, it may be a bit harder to beat him, but there is still a fair amount of races to go. So it's gonna, and of course he is off the back of his first DNF, so he's not got the momentum on his side. But I'm pretty sure that he will continue. He will be back on the pace. And now it's time to go into the race week moments of the... Before we close off, it's now time to talk about the race week moments of the week. Of the weekend that's just happened, that's just gone by. At number 5, we have F3 Carnage. After where we saw an action-packed first Formula 3 race, which saw a lot of action and incidents. Obviously, good to see all the drivers get out okay. But that was one of... I could say that this makes this list for all the wrong reasons, it can be said. You had an incident involving Bent Viscal and Jack Doohan, and then you had obviously Ollie Coolwell spinning and being collected by Lucas Dunner. At number 4, we have AlphaTauri passing a Ferrari. And this makes this list for both the right and the wrong reasons. Right in the sense for AlphaTauri, but wrong in the sense for Ferrari. I mean, it was a real indicator as to how bleak things were for Ferrari, to see a Ferrari on the same tyres as well, Pierre Gasly overtaking Sebastian Vettel in a Ferrari on merit. At number 3, we have Guan Yu Zhu's feature race charge, where he did it, whereas everyone else struggled to make the alternate strategy work, even championship leader Robert Schwartzman. Guan Yu Zhu was on a mission. He bolted on a set of the softer tyres at the end, and then he charged through the field, and then he managed to get up to a well-deserved second place. The only reason he couldn't challenge for the win was because Nikita Mazepin was too fast. At number 2, we have Danny Kvyat walking away from a heavy shunt. Now, it probably wasn't the happiest walk of all time, from his point of view, considering how angry he was, and obviously we saw how he took his anger out on a cameraman. And I saw he was getting a bit of hate for it, but many drivers have done that if they don't want to be filmed. Many drivers who are frustrated have done that in the past. But the important thing, though, was he walked away from a high-speed impact with a concrete wall, which is a real testament to how strong for a Formula 1 car and all single-seaters these days really are. And the fact that he walked away from it is what causes this to make this list. Of course, at number 1, I'm not sure it's going to be a surprise to anyone, Lewis Hamilton winning the race on 3 wheels. After his puncture after all the punctures in a dramatic end where we saw Valtteri Bottas and Carlos Sainz. As I said in the Sunday recap, I have just had this feeling that it was going to happen to Lewis. And sure enough, it did. Yet, he managed to nurse his car home ahead of Max Verstappen. I mean, when has that ever happened before? A driver winning a race on 3 wheels. And that makes that an obvious candidate for the RaceWeek moment of the week. So, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like, comment and subscribe for more RaceWeek content. And make sure you follow RaceWeek on Twitter for live updates. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you tomorrow for the Friday recap. Goodbye.